Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by and spending part of your day with me. So today it is a beautiful fall day here in Central Ohio, and it's a perfect day for making and canning up some delicious homemade apple butter. Now, I don't know about you, but I am trying to get things going for the holiday season. So apple butter seems to be a favorite gift that I make to give out to my loved ones. So I thought now would be a good time to do another apple butter recipe for you. I do have one that I did years ago, but it kind of needed to be updated. So anyway, that's why we're doing apple butter. I did find a recipe that's a little bit different than traditional apple butter. So that is another reason I wanted to do a new video for you. But anyway, it's always nice to refresh things, right? And get us ready for the holiday gift giving season. I found this recipe in the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. This is a fantastic book to have in your arsenal if you don't have it. I will leave a link in the description box for you so you can easily find it on Amazon through my Amazon link. Anyway, it's a fantastic book to have. It has a lot of great basic recipes and some other fun ones as well. And in here, they have a version of apple butter that's just a little bit different. They're calling it Sweet Apple Cider Butter. So they are going to be using apple cider in place of water in the apple butter. Now, if you've hung around my channel very much, you know that I like to make a few Carol twists and turns here, make a few changes. So I am going to be making a few safe changes to change it up a little bit, but if you want the original recipe, you can find it in this book. Now, I have seen online some people say that additional acidity is required for safely canning apple butter. Other recipes that I found, they don't include it, so I wanted to make sure I was giving you accurate and up-to-date information, so I did contact my master home food preserver friend, Shelly, and she has a group on Facebook called Home Food Preservers. If you do use Facebook and you're looking for a great canning group to be a part of, hers is fantastic. I will link it in the description box below. She follows all the guidelines and only does safe canning. So I wanted to confirm with her, do we in fact need to add more acidity? Do we not? Now, depending on the type of apple that you use, some apple varieties have less acidity than others. So her stance is that as long as you're following a tested recipe, you do not need to add it for safety. However, she does like to add it to hers for additional flavor. So I'm going to be including it in my recipe, even though it's not a part of the original recipe in this book. I am going to be adding it, but it's really for a flavor enhancer, not for safety purposes. If you go to the Ball Canning website, they do have a version of apple butter on their website, which does include a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. So again, it's one of those things where there's some discrepancy. I also want to point out that I did check the National Center of Home Food Preservation's website, and it was also interesting. Their apple butter recipe, the original apple butter recipe, includes apple, I think it's apple cider vinegar. So it does include vinegar, which is an acid. But if you look at their low sugar version of apple butter, it doesn't include any acid. So that's why I was confused, and that's why I wanted to consult Shelly to make sure I was giving you the latest and greatest information. As far as I know, and from the resources that I can tell, we do not need to add it for safety. Just make sure you're following a tested recipe, and you can find that on Ball's website. You can find it on the National Center for Home Food Preservation. Apple butter recipes are in almost all of our basic canning books. So anyway, just follow recipe. The one I'm going to be following today is in this book, and like I said, I'm going to be making some Carol changes. So for our sweet apple cider butter, you are going to need 6 pounds of apples. You can use whatever variety you prefer. If you use more than one type of apple, you will get a more complex apple flavor. And you want to peel, core, and they say 1/4 your apples. I ended up doing mine in 1/8, not quarters. The smaller you cut up your apples, obviously, the quicker they're going to break down for you. Then we need 2 cups of sweet apple cider. We need 3 cups. They are saying granulated sugar. I did 2 cups of granulated sugar and 1 cup of lightly packed brown sugar, just because I wanted more depth of flavor, but that's up to you. You need 3 cups of sugar. Their recipe calls for 1.5 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves. I used 3 teaspoons of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of ground cloves, and I added about 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Again, spices are up to you. Add more, add less, do whatever makes your taste buds happy. And then I also added 1 vanilla bean as I was cooking down my apples. So that's the equivalent, about 1 tablespoon of vanilla extract. Use it, don't use it. I think it just adds to the flavor profile. And then I did add a couple of tablespoons of bottled lemon juice. Again, not for safety, just to enhance the flavor. Something else I thought would be really good here, I did not include it in my recipe, but you certainly could. If you wanted to add a little bit of liqueur or a flavored alcohol to this to make it a little bit special for the holidays, you certainly could. A little bit of Captain Morgan, which is a spiced rum. You could add some apple schnapps. You could add Fireball, which is a cinnamon flavored liqueur. Whatever you want to do, a couple tablespoons of that would also elevate your apple butter and make it a little bit special for the holidays, but that's entirely up to you. So if you do want to add it, feel free to do that as well. I'd also like to point out that this is a small batch canning recipe. So many of you ask me for small batch recipes. That's what this is. Ball's recipe, they claim that it will make 8-ounce jelly jars. I found that it made, I got about 7 8-ounce jelly jars, so it could vary a little bit. And it is a water bath or steam canning recipe. I will be demonstrating steam canning. As you all know, I love my steam canner. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring you in close and we're gonna get started. Okay guys, we are all set to get started. I have my 6 pounds of apples that I have peeled, cored, and I've cut into 8s. The instructions were to cut them in half, but I cut them into 8s. It doesn't really matter. The smaller that they're cut, the quicker that they will break down. So to that, we are going to add 2 cups of our delicious sweet apple cider. We're going to turn our heat onto medium high. We're going to bring this up to a boil, reduce it, and then simmer it for about 30 to 45 minutes until our apples start to get soft. Okay guys, so I've been cooking my apples for about 30 minutes. You can tell that they have started to break down. They are very soft. So now we're ready to puree them. You can do this several different ways. You can do it in a food processor in batches. You can do it in a blender in batches. Ball just makes note that we do not want to liquefy it. We just want to puree it. So I'm going to go the easy route and I'm going to use my immersion blender. We just want a nice uniform texture here. Okay, so I have my apple puree. All my apples are all broken down and it's a nice uniform consistency. There aren't any big pieces left. It's kind of like similar to applesauce, maybe a little bit further than applesauce, but that's the texture that we're looking for. And now we're ready to add our other ingredients. So we're going to start by adding 2 cups of granulated sugar. And then I'm going to add 1 cup of lightly packed brown sugar. You want a total of 3 cups of sugar here, so however you want to do that. I'm gonna give that a stir. All right, and then I'm gonna add my spices. I have 3 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. I have 1/4 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and then I have about 1/2 teaspoon of cloves. You can use whatever spices that you desire. Then to that, I'm also going to add a vanilla bean that I stole from my vanilla extract. And then I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice. This is not for safety. We talked about this earlier, just to enhance the flavor. So I just want about a tablespoon or 2 of lemon juice just to enhance the flavor. We're going to give that a stir and we're going to bring this up to a very gentle simmer. We want some evaporation and some concentration to happen here. And we want our apple butter to get nice and thick and darken in color. So I'm going to turn this on to about a medium low heat. And we're going to let it simmer very gently until, like I said, we get that perfect apple butter color and consistency. Okay guys, I wanted to bring you back real quick and show you how we have a consistent, nice consistent simmer going on here. Sometimes I have trouble with my apple butter spattering. So if spattering is a problem, I'll just put the lid on and make it ajar so that we can still get some evaporation to happen. But I've got a nice boil going on, or a nice low simmer going on here, and it's not doing that. So I'm okay, but if you do have trouble with spattering, that is a good way to keep it from making a mess all over your stove. So that's really what we want, is a nice consistent simmer like that. And then you do want to make sure you are stirring it fairly frequently so it does not stick or scorch on the bottom. So we're gonna keep going here until we get to the right consistency. And while that's happening, I'm gonna get my canner and my jars ready. Guys, we are all done. I've been cooking my apple butter for about a good hour and a half. And it should feel nice and thick when you stir it. And also when you put it on a spoon, it should start to hold its shape. And the other way to test it is to put some on a chilled plate, and there shouldn't be any liquid that pools around the edges of it. So I think we're pretty good to go ahead and can ours up. So I'm going to bring you in close and we're going to get the canning process started. Okay, so the other thing I want to mention is you do want to make sure that you did remove your vanilla bean prior to canning up your apple butter. Modern canning guidelines state that we do not need to pre-sterilize jars or lids as long as we are processing for 10 minutes or more, and we're going to be processing for 10 minutes. So I just washed my jars and kept them hot in my canner. The lids today, I am using Superb lids. I'm going to be giving my apple butter as gifts this Christmas, so I love the Superb lids. They work really well for me, and I love that their lids are gold. Really fun for gift giving. To prep your lids for the Superb lids, you do not need to preheat them in any way. You just want to wash them in hot soapy water and set them aside. So there's no prep for using the Superb lids. The one thing I did want to mention as far as using them is some people do complain about them buckling. If you have problems with them buckling, it's because you are tightening the bands too tight. You just want to tighten your band and just until you feel a little bit of resistance. So just a little tip there. Make sure you follow the manufacturer's instructions for whatever lids you are using. Different manufacturers have different instructions for how to prepare them for the canning process. All right, so we are going to start with 2 hot jars, and we are going to ladle our hot apple butter into our jars to 1/4 inch headspace. Our apple butter is just a beautiful color, and you can tell how it's holding its shape. Even as I ladled it into the jar, it's holding its shape, so we know that it is good and ready. Anyway, once you get to about 1/4 inch headspace, you're going to use a debubbling tool, plastic butter knife, or a chopstick to release any air bubbles. So just poke around your jar. If your headspace changes, you might want to top off your apple butter. I think I could use a little bit more in this one. Once you're happy with your headspace, we're going to take a paper towel. I like to dip mine in white vinegar to clean my rims. We don't want anything to interfere with getting a good seal, so you want to make sure that your rims are nice and clean. Then we are going to center our lids and add our bands to fingertip tight. Again, just until you start to feel some resistance. That's all the tighter you need them to be. You don't want to go too far. And then in the canner they go. Okay guys, so I got about 7 8-ounce jelly jars. Ball and did state in their recipe that you should get 8. I got 7 and just a spoonful or 2 more, so we're pretty close. I think I did fail to mention that as I was filling my jars, I did have 3 quarts of simmering water in the bottom of my steam canner. That is what is recommended by the manufacturer of my steam canner. So make sure you follow the instructions that come with your steam canner. If you're water bath canning, you want enough simmering water in your water bath canner to cover your jars by 1 inch once you put them in your jar. So make sure that that's happening. So now I put the lid on my canner. I am going to crank my heat up to high. We are going to bring it to a full rolling boil. If you are water bath canning, if you are steam canning, you want it to get into your green zone. There's a dial gauge on top of your steam canner that tells you when to start your processing time. So once you reach the appropriate temperature, you can go ahead and process for 10 minutes. Once you start your processing time, you want to reduce your heat just to maintain a full rolling boil or staying in your green zone on your steam canner. Once we get there, I'll bring you back. Okay guys, I processed for 10 minutes, just like I told you. And then I let my jar sit in my canner for an additional 5 minutes or so. But anyway, there's your delicious apple cider apple butter. So delicious, all those delicious spices, the addition of the apple cider instead of using water really ramps up the apple flavor, and it's just fantastic. So I hope you all will give it a try. If you have any comments or questions, make sure you leave them for me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Have a fantastic day.